The Spanish Civil War broke out in 1939. It was caused by the differences between the ideologies of the nationalist conservatism, traditionalism, and fascism, and of the Republicans, liberalism, socialism, and communism. Nationalists were mainly rebels of the armed forces, landowners, the bourgeoisie, and the Catholic Church. They believed in the industrial oligarchy, which meant that the industry was controlled by a few people. They were supported by Germany, Italy, and Portugal. The Republicans were mostly workers, peasants, syndicates, socialist armed groups, and anarchists. They were supported by the USSR, the European democracies, and Mexico. The principal political parties were the CNT, the FAE, and the FIJL. There were smaller ones such as the Syndicalist Party, UGT, and the POUM.
The POUM was a worker party of Marxist unification. It was founded between 1935 and 1937. Their ideology was based on the Marxism, communism, anti-Stalinism, and anti-capitalism.
How was the lifestyle?
I had come to Spain with some notion of writing newspaper articles, but I had joined the militia almost immediately, because at that time and in that atmosphere it seemed the only conceivable thing to do.
Were the words that Orwell said when he arrived to Barcelona the 26th of December of 1936. He immediately joined the POUM and he fought in the militias in many battles such as the one in 1937 in Alcubierre. After that he went to Barcelona and then the 20th of May he returned to Huesca where he received a shot in his neck. He later wrote a book talking about the lifestyle at the war. In his book he described the situation and the conditions of the towns where they lived. Every building was draped with red flags or with the red and black flags of the anarchists. Every wall was scrawled with a hammer and a sickle, and with the initials of the revolutionary parties. Every church was gutted, and its images were burned. The businesses were collectivized, and the treatment was of equally to equally.
Nobody said señor, usted, or even don. Everyone called everyone else comrade.
The mill's state was very poor, shops were mostly shabby and half empty. Meat was scarce and milk was practically unobtainable. There was also a shortage of coal, sugar and petrol, and a really serious shortage of bread. There was no unemployment and the price for living was extremely low.
Above all,
George Orwell said,
there was a belief in the revolution and the future, feelings of having suddenly emerged into an era of equality and freedom.
The militias were divided into different units of command, the section about 30 men, the centuria about 100 men, and the column, which in practice meant any large number of men. There were 1,000 men at the barracks, apart from the militiamen's wives, who did the cooking. There were still women serving in the militias. In the early battles, women fought side by side with the men, until they removed them, because men saw them as an object of distraction. Orwell counts that the militiamen had to be kept out of the riding school, while the women were drilling there because they laughed at the women and put them off. He added,
a few months earlier, no one would have seen anything comic in a woman handling a gun. It was not exactly a uniform. Perhaps a multiform would be the proper name for it,
commented Orwell in relation with the uniform they had to wear. Everyone's clothes followed the same general plan, but they were never with the same in only 2 cases. They wore corduroy knee breeches, but there the uniformity ended. Everyone wore a tipper jacket, but some of the jackets were made of leather, others of wool, and of every conceivable colors, and nearly every man wore a red and black handkerchief around his throat.
The Battle of the Ebro was the last major Republican offensive of the war. The Republican troops crossed the Ebro River under cover of darkness on the night of 24th-25th of July. The attack involved 2 corps of the Popular Army and was launched from the territory of Catalonia. The initial attack met with success, but Franco was quick to respond and nationalist units were rushed to the front from other sectors to contain the advance. Additionally, the nationalists provided much air support, including the German Condor Legion. These aircraft were able to hamper Republican resupply efforts, as all material had to be bought across bridges, making it very vulnerable. By early August, the nationalists had mostly contained the offensive and were ready to counterattack. At this point, the Republicans adopted a policy that was to prove fatal to their hopes of continuing the war. Faced with superior firepowers, they chose to hold the ground they had taken at whatever cost, including threatening to shoot officers or men who withdraw. This allowed the nationalists to destroy much of the Republican army of the Ebro and its equipment, leaving Catalonia vulnerable to an assault it could no longer hope to contain. The Battle of the Ebro was the longest battle of the Civil War, and it wasn't until early November that the nationalists were able to break the Republican front and advance to the Ebro River. The Republican forces suffered 75,000 casualties, including wounded and captured. The nationalists suffered around 60,000 casualties, but their forces remained intact enough to launch an offensive into Catalonia a few weeks after the Ebro fighting ended.